Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. We finally got the time correct. I don't have to do any last minute changes. Let's see, Eric. What's going on, Eric? Peace and greetings, everybody. Peace and greetings to you, Eric. Steven, uh, thanks for sending me those links. I saw your videos and I saw the one about face tape. So I'm not sure if you know, but if you use foot spray, foot powder, just use some foot powder, spray it on your club face, and it will show you the same impact. You can wipe it off. You don't have to keep peeling it off. Works out to be cheaper that way. I think foot spray is like $3 or $4 a can, and it'll last you quite some time. So I wanted to mention that to you before I forgot. So today's videos, we've got, let me see, 7 of them. So we're going to try and move through these fairly quick, but not too quick that we can't learn. But we're going to have to speed up a little bit and not get so detailed. So our first individual has issues with casting and scooping. So let's look at this swing, and it is slow motion, but we'll make it work. Casting and scooping. So usually casting and scooping can be multiple things. Most importantly is the hands are taking over, and why are they taking over is what we have to decide. Now, for you watching at home, you can probably see a lack of turn specifically before we hit the golf ball. Now, that could be a ball position issue. It's hard to tell from this point of view, but it does look like that ball position is slightly back. So if we, what did I just do there? So if we pause this here, let's go back to the beginning and let's zoom in. It's a little bit too far here. All right, let's get the zoom tool out. You guys have to deal with all my issues with the computer. I can't edit it out on live, so you got to deal with that. But if we take a look at where the ball position is relative to his feet, we pull that ball position back, we can see that it could definitely be a ball position issue. Face on would really help. So if you're watching this by chance, and maybe not, because some of these are from Australia. So whenever you do watch this and you do have a face on, please send me the face on so we can see where that ball position is. But just based on that, you can't really turn before you hit the golf ball, because if you turn, naturally your hands are going to want to stay with your body as you turn, unless you get so disconnected that you need to turn to get out of your hands' way. I've seen that occur where your hands get too far behind you, and the only way to get them back to the golf ball is by turning. But that doesn't seem to be your issue. We can definitely see some posture issues, some weight distribution issues, but from here to here, notice how the hips stall out. They don't really turn. So right away, I'm just going to question your ball position and see if you can move that ball position more towards the center so it could promote rotation, because as you strike the ball from this point on, now you rotate. So you can clearly rotate, but there's a reason why you're stalling that rotation. Scotty Scheffler rules. Yes, Stephen, Scotty Scheffler does rule. So overall, let's just take a look at the setup and see what we can see with the setup. Barney Purple coming right at you. You think we could see Barney Purple through that pink shirt? Possibly. All right, and the camera angle is a little shifted, so we can't really get the center of the arches of the heels, but we're going to try and guess. We'll go in the middle of these two. So it's not bad in terms of your centeredness. As you take that club back, let's put a top plane line up too. As you take that club back, we do see some turning going on, slight disconnection, a good amount of turn though. You see there's the center of your chest, the hands are still connected to the center of your chest, so you're doing a pretty good job. You're staying relatively close to your original setup with your shoulder tilt. As we get to the top swing, you're staying down. So, I mean, all in all, it looks pretty good. I do see some distribution into the golf ball here. So look at how much spacing you've lost, right? So there's another reason why it's hard. I mean, think about this. When you stand up at impact, you're trying to give your hands and arms more room to work through that impact zone and deliver and release. Because if you stay in your posture and you don't turn, your hands are now given the responsibility to strike that ball more for you than the body. Now, when they do that, when you release the club, you're elongating your impact circle sooner. So you will probably bottom out way before the golf ball unless you start standing up. Now, when you're standing up and your weight is stuck in your toes, you are going to start to stand up into the golf ball and lose some real estate, which is why you stand up. but now you have adequate real estate for your hands to kind of flip through and get down to the golf ball. But then once you pass it, you see your motion's already standing up. We start to see a spinning out of your heels. So that left foot is completely spinning out. So it's just a little inefficient weight distribution. I would imagine if you get that ball position sorted out and you keep your hands more in front of your chest, specifically at the top of the swing, so they don't get so disconnected. Now, one of the reasons they might be disconnecting is because they are being relied upon at impact. So they've learned to kind of pull back. Wanted to check back in, been working on my footwork. This is from Patrick. Recommendations you made, and I think I'm making progress. Also, do you like Swing Catalyst? I only use Swing Catalyst in the office here just for this purpose. I don't use it on the range. Believe it or not, I try and stay away from technology when I'm teaching. The closest thing I get to technology is my iPhone, and I record swings, and then I show my students what we're trying to accomplish. I say the technology stuff for me for when I go home. So at the end of my day, my teaching day, I look at my students, I pop them on this, and I just kind of look at where I would like to take them, maybe set up for the next lesson to kind of go through all that before. But I think it's a great tool for the basic necessities. And most of you just need it for the basic lines, but just understanding what those lines are and how to read those lines and learn what the cause and effect can cause lines to do. I think it's great. So yes, I do recommend Swing Catalyst. I'm not sponsored by them. I just really think that they're, for what it is, I think it's like $10 a month. It's pretty decent. And in terms of working on your footwork recommendations you made, I think I'm making progress. Good job. If you want to send me a updated video, I love seeing updated videos. Go ahead and send me that. And if you by chance have the original video that you sent me, please include that too, because once I get thousands of emails a month. So I try to clean out my emails as often as I can, and videos are the first ones to go because they take up a lot of data. So send me that update. That'll be great to see. But I hope it helps this gentleman. If you do have a face on, let me know. But check that ball position, move it more to your center, and try and keep your hands more in front of your chest as you turn to eliminate the need for them to be involved. But we just don't know what caused what. Could it be the ball position that caused that, or could it be your hands and arms have been dominating that the ball position was required to move back there? But we have to figure out which one. Usually we have to change both. All right, let's see who's next. We have zoom in. And we got somebody in headphones, which is good. Headphones are nice to use on the range. All right, so this one is suffers from thinning and pushing. Let's take a look. All right, hands slightly raising up, shoulders slightly raising up. Very steep. Yep, I see it. Okay, so again, some distribution issues at impact. Yeah, look at those knees. Those knees are really driving in. I see you trying to push the weight from the right side. More turning than pushing. This is where it gets a little bit unusual, because remember the feel of turning. You can turn too much. Sometimes we over exaggerate turn. And when you over exaggerate turn, things work steeper and more around your body. So this could be a good arm position, but because we're starting to turn right away, our path becomes very steep, and then we're kind of stuck with that. And then we have to learn how to control the face angle at impact. So for you watching this and for you wanting to work on your own swing, just remember, face sends it, path bends it. And usually it bends the opposite way of your path. So in other words, if your ball starts immediately right, that means your club face is open. What it does in the air, let's say it moves more right, that means your path is left of your club face, if that makes sense. So if you constantly hit a right shot and it's consistent, there's no reason to change it. The whole purpose of a golf swing is to come up with something consistent. So if it's consistent, it might not look the best, but that's the age question. Like, do you want to waste a bunch of time to make your swing look better and potentially hit it better, but is it worth your time that it takes to do this over and over again? So my question to everybody that's wanting to change your swing is, how is your consistency? Is it so bad that you can't control it on the golf course? And if it is, okay, now we work on positions. But we take a look at the setup. Now his concern is thinning and pushing. Now I'm wondering if he also hits it heavy, and I'm wondering if he also pulls it. I would imagine he does, more so pulling with the shorter irons, because as you get shorter irons, you're standing close to the golf ball, that path left, you start to enact more pulls than a longer club. So that's my first question to my students is what clubs do you typically pull and what clubs do you typically push? So let's take a look at this setup. We can see that it's a pretty decent setup. I would say it's a little bit too much knee flexion going on here because the knees do collapse in the downswing. So as you see this motion, watch the knees that collapse in and they almost match his lower plane line. So it's very hard for him to work down to that lower plane line. He's going to run out of room. And so his hands obviously are moving for a reason. They don't just move by themselves. It's mostly due to the rotation. So at home again, if you want to look at your first move, is you take, Barney Purple's tough to see here. So we're going to draw our triangle check. We should patent this, right? Patent the triangle check. I'm sure it's not an invention, but basically what you're telling your body at that triangle check is you're setting yourself up to pull down where it is at the top. Now, if we take a look at the first couple of moves down, we can see that move there. It's going down the right side of this triangle, our view. Right, that's a horrible arrow. Let's get the arrow tool. Let's use this. We pay $9 a month. Let's use this. Okay, so it's going down that right side of the triangle. You're dead at that point. You're going to be steep no matter what because momentum is taking you steep. There's no way from that position to impact you can all of a sudden reroute things. It just can't happen. The body's in control at this point, and the arms go along for the ride. If you can remember this too, from setup to the back of your swing, it's all position-based. From the top of your swing to impact, it's all momentum-based. And momentum occurs from positions. So I prefer to focus on positions from the start of the swing to the top of the swing to get students in better positions. And as natural athletes, we all have some athletic ability, some more than others. We let that natural ability take over. So that's what I would recommend for this person is let's work on the first part of the takeaway, get to the top a little bit differently. And then this first move, we see a lot of motion to the right, a lot of turning. So at this point, we're very steep. We're not going to do much from that position. Let's go back. Okay, we're very steep here. There's not much that can occur from this other than just swinging straight down to the golf ball. And I can see why you would have thin issues. I would imagine you also have heavy issues and you also thin and, pushes and pulls. So anytime you have 4 misses, that's going to be an issue. But let's back it up and see why our hands do that. So let's erase some of these lines, not all of them. And we're going to put a back brace line. Man, I just put new, look at this. It's not even, let's try this one. Okay. So as we take that club back, we're still in that posture. We see the left shoulder raising up a little bit. We see the top position here. Just notice how the hands are outside of his center point. At the bare minimum, you want your hands to be right at that center point. If you can, slightly behind that center point. Because all we're doing there is making sure our club is in a position where it's closer to the plane line, because this here is much closer to the plane line than this here. So the sooner we can get it closer to that plane line, the more successful you will become, because it's going to be connected to your rotation. It's not going to be fighting your rotation. If your rotation is going this way and your arms are cutting across your body, they're not connected to your rotation. They're just a byproduct of that. But as soon as we can connect your hands, now we turn together. Now they're working in unison to strike that golf ball. So we go back even further. Let's take a look at the setup. Can we change the setup? I don't think so. I think that's a pretty good setup. So in terms of this point of view, it looks pretty good. Maybe, if we want to start nitpicking, maybe slightly taller and a little bit more upper body bent forward to get a little bit more balance. But I'd say that's nitpicking. I think this first move here, you notice how the hands want to work up and away from that lower plane line. Let's get the hands to go more on that lower plane line and deepen your turn. So a good drill that I have worked on with my students, see, because right here, hands should still be right about there. So you're still on that lower plane line. So this hands, look how much real estate we're saving already. We're pulling things inside. Your shoulder tilt looks good, so it's not a shoulder tilt issue. It's not like your left shoulder is coming out of its posture. it looks like at some point your hands have just decided to pick up and they get too high and you don't reroute. So some people that get high, a la Jim Furyk, they get their hands nice and high. They learn how to reroute and they just do it and they become really good at it. There's just a lack of rerouting here. So let's not expect you to learn how to reroute because that creates a lot of timing. Let's just get you synced up on the first part of the takeaway. So I think if you get yourself your hands on that plane line till right about here, and now we can raise the hands up, I think your left arm will be a little bit closer to this position. So it might feel like it's flatter, but I think if you get that turn connected together, it'll help you out. So a good drill is, let me see. I have this speaker. It's a very small speaker. But if you want to grab something like a bucket, so I'm going to stand further back, so hopefully you can still hear me. I'll explain what I'm going to do, and then I'll do it. So you're going to hold the range bucket in front of your chest. You're going to pull it up to your chest. Then you're going to go ahead and turn. And right when you get that full shoulder turn, just elongate your hands and pull them out in front. And that should be completely 100% connected to your chest. Do you want to be there? Not necessarily, but it wants to be a hybrid. Right now, your hands have disconnected from your chest and raising too high. So let me show you what it's like. And I'll come back on the mic. So get your range bucket here. Pull it up in front of your chest. Go ahead and stay in your tilt and just turn. And now extend out. So if I do it from this angle, I'm in my posture. I go ahead and turn and remain in my tilt. You don't want to start raising up. Remain in your tilt and then just extend out. Now that is pure connection because that's right in front of my chest. I would imagine when you get to this top position, you've already disconnected your arms, you're up over here. There's going to be a big difference between being here and being there. Now remember, this is a feel drill. We're not expecting you to swing like that, but you all need a feel-derived drill, specifically in winter, because winter times we don't have good weather. We're stuck. Some of you are in snow. Some of you can't even get to a golf course for months. But nowadays we got indoor facilities. But regardless, you need something to work on at home where you're not hitting a golf ball. So just remember, golf balls pull out your old habits like that. And that's one of the reasons why I named my academies the Lion Golf Academy. And I'm sure I've explained this before. But think about this. If I'm learning how to walk differently than I currently do, normally I walk with my heels down and then I push off with my toes. Next one, for whatever reason, I'm just going to decide, hey, I'm going to learn something completely different. I'm going to walk down with my toes first and then my heels. It's going to feel very awkward. But if I do it enough times, not in a living situation, if I just do it in my room, I can focus on it. I'm going to eventually walk like that more often. And I think I've got this. So then I go out into the real world. I go on a safari hunt. All of a sudden, this lion jumps out of a bush and starts chasing me. How do you think I'm going to run away? Am I going to run away with my toes down first? Or am I just going to do my heels down first because that's what's been done more often? I guarantee you I'm running away with my heels down first. And that is exactly what happens when you put a golf ball in front of you. Your old neurological system will fire 99.9% of the times. So if you hit 1,000 golf balls, you've only done one that's correct. All the other ones, you've instilled bad habits. Now you've got to untrain all those 999, and it's just a losing ratio. You're never going to get better. You have to have some sort of field-derived drill that you can do in between shots. And I'm talking about the range. So if I'm having a student, one of my biggest challenges to them, in 1 hour of practice, I want them to hit 10 golf balls. That's it. In between each golf ball, I'm going to expect them to do their dry swings and to get the feeling and to pick apart what feels differently in their body. Could be rotation, could be stretching, could be buildup of tension anywhere, just so they can relate something to the swing. After about 10 or 15 dry swings, we're going to put a golf club in their hand and now do it with a golf club, no golf ball, and see if you can get that same feeling. Now, after you've done that for about 10 or 15 times, hit one golf ball because you've earned that and see what happens. And you want to video the one that you hit because it will not look like that dry swing. But if you can start to change it very subtly every time you go out, now you're going to work towards a better goal and a better way to get this accomplished. So that's my one recommendation for practicing correctly. So be careful not to become a range rat and expect to change, because range rats usually are very timing oriented. And anybody here watching experiences this. When they put 100 golf balls down, there is a time in that session where they hit 15 to 20 golf balls within about 5 to 10 minutes, just perfectly. Man, I've got this. No, you haven't. You've just dialed in your timing because you're hitting more golf balls. You have to emulate the golf course. So hopefully that helps you, gentlemen, if you're watching this. If not, and you watch this later, let me know in the comments if that makes sense to you. Didn't mean to go on my soapbox, but sometimes I do. So let's see who is next. We have. All right. Speaking of winter, that looks like a pretty dry winter there. So this one is just pretty simple. Looking for tips to work on during the winter. So this is exactly what we're talking about. Let me see. Nice weather here in Vegas. Oh, you're in Vegas. Nice. Scotty is a machine. Yes, he is. Are you in the city of Vegas or are you like in the outskirts? I've been to Vegas more times than I can want to admit. All right, let's take a look at this. We're going to put some playing lines up before we take a look at the swing. Setup looks a little bit of an issue. Lifting the club up, getting stuck. Okay, yeah, whoa. So you can definitely see at this point, we're trying to just muscle whatever we can to get that golf ball. And we see, whoa, that's definitely some, look at that loss. I mean, that's the body's working the wrong way. I hate to say this. You know, I don't like pointing out bad stuff, but this is a good education. So think about this. Like, how can I relate this? I don't know what they call this in the Olympics when you have that big, heavy ball and you're spinning around and it's on like a rope or a piece of chain and you just release it. So think about that. Think about you holding that heavy chain with the heavy ball and you want to spin around. Now, whichever way you're spinning, so if you can elongate that chain, so if the outside pressure is moving further away from you and you're pulling against that chain, the ball is going to be heavier, but it's also going to move faster. So that's basically what you're trying to accomplish in the golf swing. And how do we do that? Is we have to make sure while we're turning that the body is working, it's trying to pull away from the golf ball. And what that does is it creates length, it creates tension, it creates a lot of built up energy that needs to release. When your body is going into that chain, think about that chain, think about the golf club being very soft and you're moving into the ball. Your chain's going to go, or what is it? Hammer throw. Thank you, Eric. It's a pretty simple name, right? But think about that. That chain is going to move and get soft, and there's not going to be much. So you have to muscle whatever you can. And we can see that muscle occurring. So from the top of the swing, we see the body moving into the golf balls right there. So that center of the body is moving in. And now it's like, let's just muscle what we can. And we see that last ditch effort to muscle what we can. So we're fighting against ourselves. We're not using our body correctly. Now, one of the reasons, let's take a look and see if his setup is causing some chaos here. Okay, so we're going to split the difference. Okay, so we see toe based, picking up the hand. Yeah, so once it's toe based and the hands are going higher, can you imagine how much pressure is stored up in these toes? I mean, there's not much that you can do from this point. Plus momentum, when you pull in your hands out, you are going to start to shift this way. And now you can see that loss already, and we're starting to stand up. So we're standing up because we're turning. We're shifting towards our toes even more because we're toe-based setup, and we're moving our hands away from us. And now you can see the momentum. Look at that head. The head's still shifting towards the golf ball. So we've lost some real estate. And now we've got to start to stand up even more to create some more room for our hands and arms to move through. But you can see all the weight is stuck on these toes. And we're standing up, stuck. We moved into the golf ball, and you see there's that thrust of the hips to try and get something going. And the follow through, you lose a complete balance, falling the wrong way. So, same sort of thing as the last gentleman. As you take that club back, there's really no need to pick up this club unless you suffer from some rotational issues, unless you've got some injury that prohibits you to rotate. Looks like a young, strong guy. So we have to just be more connected with our turn. Setup, I don't mind seeing a toe-based setup. Just remember, toe-based setups, you have to get your hands really high because everything is scrunched in. You're standing slightly closer to the golf ball. That's going to raise up your plane a little bit higher. So if you're heel-based, you're sitting down more, and the plane will be slightly lower. So just keep that in mind. Toe base are I love toe base swingers because they get nice and high, create a lot of room. They don't have to rotate as much. So if you have trouble rotating, get steeper. If you don't have trouble rotating, you want to be a little flatter because you can take advantage of that rotation. But we take a look. This first initial part, same sort of thing. We see the club face is veering open compared to the spine angle, and the left shoulder is coming up. So this one's different than the last one. The last one, the left shoulder was staying perpendicular to his spine angle, but his hands were lifting up. So he was doing a good job staying on that spine angle, but his hands were coming up. This one, it looks like the whole body is coming up, shoulders lifting up, hands are also going up with that shoulder tilt. So it's not necessarily, I don't think it's the hands moving as much as the shoulders. So for this one, you want to think about your left shoulder working its way down to the right knee. And if you are videotaping yourself like I see you're doing at the top of your swing, just try and see right midway point. Take a look at this left shoulder, see how much higher it is. You want that midway point to be more connected, and you want to be more perpendicular. So you can see how much that left shoulder needs to stay down. So that's what I would recommend first, and that will help you get that arm lower, staying on that lower plane line longer. Overall, I think you're definitely an athlete. You can make this work, and I see a lot of potential with your hand-eye coordination, the way you move. I just think your body's moving against itself, and you should be able to stay more centered based on your first part of your takeaway. So left shoulder more down to the right knee. Feel like the hands are going with the turn instead of pulling up and away, which will pull your weight into your toes. You might feel with this newer move that you're trying to promote, by getting that left shoulder more down, you might feel the weight shift more to the center of your feet, possibly even the heels. And it's going to feel that way. But is it really that way? Maybe not as much as you think it is. But you want to look for complete opposite feeling, because we're going to shoot for complete opposite feeling to introduce it to you when you do strike a golf ball. So again, when you're practicing this, get that exaggerated feeling and stay with that exaggerated feeling or thought while you hit a golf ball, because you want to try and meet the middle. So hopefully that helps you. Okay, we got to move along. Let's see what this one is. All right, this one is tips to shorten the backswing. So let's see. Yeah, definitely. But you make it work, though. Yeah, look at that weight shifting towards the toes. Yeah, but you do make it work. And this is one that that first video we saw, that student with the arms traveling a little too long. You can remember at impact, he had to stall his rotation to get the arms back in front. This is the other way that I mentioned too, is once your arms are disconnected, if you are capable, watch the body turn. The body's going to turn and get out of the way. You can see how disconnected they are. They're still stuck behind that right side. So this is the other effect of getting disconnected. So we have one where the person didn't turn to create the room, and now we have one where the person stayed in the posture and turned effectively and just remained disconnected. So this is one that it's challenging, because you can see it's definitely athletic. You have a really good posture. You maintain yourself. There's a really good balance going on here. I would say that you are offsetting yourself really well. And this is the toughest people to teach and to change, because they are so good at getting away with things. But if you take a look at this, we're going to take a look at the relationship between the tilt and the turn. So good job staying in the posture. Right about here, we can see that dipping. So, and this is pretty good too. I would say the lower plane line. Yeah, it seems like there's just been an exaggeration at some point, and it could have been that you were working on something with your shoulder tilt to remain level, that you might start to exaggerate it. This looks a little bit too exaggerated, where that deepening of the shoulder tilt even past here. So right about here, you've already deepened you already stayed relative. So that from this point on, it looks like you're trying to stay on that lower plane line with your hands a little bit too long. And by staying on that lower plane line, your left shoulder has to tilt a little bit more. And now all of a sudden we have an increase of tilt and your upper body's moving into the golf ball. And now you're waiting. You can see your feet. Look at both heels are starting to pull up and the weighting's stored a little bit too much in your toes. And now you're kind of trapped. Arm length, hey, if you can make this work, you can make it work. I don't know why you would want to change the arm length. I would have to know more about your impact. Do you miss the ball? Which side do you miss it on? How often do you miss it on? How much do you practice and play? Because if you practice and play a lot, hey, you can get away with this swing because it's more timing oriented. But if you only get to practice and play 2 or 3 times a month, that's going to be tough to enjoy the game. So yeah, I can see why you need to change things. But I would say if you want some checkpoints, again, that drill that I mentioned in the first 20 minutes by staying more connected, right about here, we see that you're very well connected. From this point, you've already established most of your turn. You should not turn any more than that. From this point on, feel like the hands are going straight up to the sky, which they do really good, but then just stop right there. The club, because you have tried to keep it relative to your shoulder tilt, meaning the club face to relative. So instead of, I like the way that you keep your club face relative to your shoulders to about here. From here to here, you still keep it relative, and that pulls you down. And your hands, the club at the top is not quite where it needs to be. It needs to be more here. So let those hands roll open slightly. I mean, you've already established your turn by keeping your club relative to your tilt to about here, and now roll those hands slightly. That'll get it to a better position. You can maintain your width. Your arms don't have to cross back over. And then from here, you can see how much closer they are to your plane line. So the club doesn't have to reroute. It can just be pulled down by this. So let's redraw that here. So there's your club. There is your lower plane line. So if we can get this right elbow to not hold that angle so much, to kind of roll and fold a little bit, then your elbow check would be about here. And then that club, that club will be about here. And now, if you can just see what will happen, the arms will naturally pull down that, and the club will naturally drop into the slot. So you don't have to worry about it. But other than that, I mean, your rotation is really good. I wouldn't focus too much on the rotation. Even as you finish, we do lose a lot of posture into the ball past impact. That's just a sign that the weighting is being pushed again this way, because maybe you were stored up too much on your toes because of that excess tilt. So this is the other one. So we see people with the shoulder tilt that they lose, they raise their shoulder tilt. This one's deepening. This one's going down, and that's going to pull your weighting. And how you counteract that weighting definitely helps. Sometimes people pull the hands lower to counteract that weighting. Other times they do it in the downswing. So let me know how that goes. If you're watching this and you have a face-on view, it will really help as well. That ball position looks maybe slight bit back, but not too concerning like that first gentleman we saw. All right, next up. All right, this one, I know this gentleman is, I believe, in Australia, so probably not going to be on. And let's see what he says. He wants to straighten the arm at impact, and why he cannot straighten his arm at impact. And that's basically it. So let's watch the swing while I take a sip of my coffee. I want that ball replacer. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that already, why it's hard. Remember, this looks like a hybrid, maybe a wood of some sort. So that setup already looks a little bit too squatty, too low. He does a really good job of staying in his posture. Unfortunately, because it's so low, he has to stay down. And when you stay down, we all know what happens. The arms have to absorb themselves, or else you'll chunk it very heavy. So this is a pretty easy, quick one to figure out. But let's just see right at impact what he's talking about. All right, so let's take a look at this setup. Lower, upper, back brace line, and forward bend. So that's quite a big forward bend for a hybrid or a wood. He does a good job though. Look at the turn and look at the tilt. So really good. Look at the hands still out in front of the chest. He has to get some hip issues just because when you're that low with a long club, you have to break your hips at some point. So he might be stacking on the left side a little bit. Weight is on the toes as expected because this is a big tilt in relative to the club. As he gets to the top plane line, you can see he's hitting all these positions. Great position here. We see that left side loaded. We see he's turning a lot, and he stays down. Look at that. He goes down, gets the club in the slot. Right about here, we can see the raising of the arm slightly, and he's swinging up at this point, which is good. We do see some motion this way. Now, this could be a camera issue because if you start moving left, you get further away from the lens, and it could give you this appearance like you're moving into the golf ball. I don't see much crashing going on because if you look at the new spine angle, he's still relatively close, specifically being that bent over with a hybrid or a wood. And as he strikes the golf ball, we can see right there is what he's talking about, that right arm. I would imagine that's a right arm is not able to release enough. So obviously it can't release enough here because if he does, he's going to make contact with the ground back over here. So it's just learning how to hit the golf ball. Now, would you want to elongate your arm when you have this decent of a swing? I wouldn't. I mean, you've made it work. Again, it all goes back down to why you want to lengthen your swing. Is it to look good? Is it to compare yourself with others that supposedly look the correct way? How is your misses? Are they costing you anything? If this is a swing issue just with the hybrids and the woods, is it worth investing a total rehaul of your golf swing when you only hit the hybrids and woods a few times around? I don't know. These are questions you have to ask yourself. Just try and shy away from looking perfect or thinking, hey, this doesn't look right. Just go to your results. Go to how you hit the golf ball. Now, if this came to me and said, hey, I hit 40% rope hooks, 10% block rights, and 30 or 40% decent shots. Okay, well, that's enough of a miss to discuss it. But it still doesn't warrant any changes because how many times do you hit that club? And is it only affecting this club? So these are questions I want you to ask yourself when you're wanting to change your swing. It's all derived from statistics. So unless you take detailed statistics, we're going to watch them swing over and over again. Unless you take detailed statistics to understand what your true weaknesses are, there's no point to just change stuff because you think it's the right thing to change. Who knows? He could hit this club perfectly and there's no reason. He could hit it horribly. But then we have to look at, does it affect his score? Like how many times does he use it and how many shots does it cost him? So without stats. So if anybody wants stat taking Excel spreadsheet that I give to my students, email me, leave a comment with your email. Just get a hold of me. I'll send it to you. It's pretty easy to keep track of. But after about 10 rounds, you can easily see where you're weak at. Is it the distance control? Is it rights or lefts? What club? How far do you hit each club? You're putting, you're chipping. It keeps track of everything. So it's pretty easy to figure out where you need to spend most of your time in your practice sessions. I think you've got a great swing. Yes, it's unorthodox. It looks like it's efficient. I wouldn't change much unless you think it needs to be changed based on your scoring ability and how this club affects it. But if this is a common thing across your whole set of clubs, maybe get fitted for clubs. But then again, you are swinging around clubs that you have learned to swing. So just by changing clubs, it's not going to change anything. It might ruin everything. So this is a big decision to make. But I hope that helps you. Let's see who is next. All right, let's zoom in on this one. This looks like Colorado. Doesn't that look like the Rockies back there? I'm going to guess Colorado. I haven't guessed in a while. I wasn't very good at guessing last time. Wichita. Who remembers Wichita? All right, this is white shorts, black shirt, swing help. That's all we got. I need swing help. All right, let's take a look. Let's see what swing help. Let's see if this was a student. Let's say I knew everything about that I need to know about this student. Let's see what I would want to change first. So again, stuck on the toes. Watch the toes. Not a lot of rotation. So that setup might be creating some issues for some rotation. very, very tall in terms of the plane work. So remember, when your plane is taller, you don't need a lot of rotation. When your plane is flatter, you need a lot of rotation. So is it worth changing this setup to allow rotation? That's a big question. But let's just see. Let's break this down. Let's make sure we get this so the lines make sense. All right, right there. All right. So look how tall this plane is. Very tall. And so the secondary plane, if you were truly rotating around everything and you're able to hold your angles and the club works along the correct plane based on your setup, that's where the left arm should be. And you can see how high that left arm is. Now, this is an arched setup, so you don't want to draw the spine angle from here because the spine is more up here. So we can see that center is way up in the top of the chest. Arches of the heels, we're going to split the difference. This is almost there. So setup looks pretty athletic, pretty centered. We see the back brace line. Let's back that up, take that away. All right, now the first part of the swing, we can see he does work up that plane line pretty well. See, the club face is, however, shut to that plane. Excuse me, to the back, the spine angle here. So we have a shut club face, gets to the top. He tries to get to that secondary plane line, so he does a pretty good job. Weight is shifting towards the toes at this point. Drops it in the slot. So you can see the slot is steep, so it's going to be naturally a steep angle just because of that setup. Club face, did we catch it here somewhere? It's hard to tell. It's blurry. Right there. Oh yeah, look how close that club face is. So we have a closed club face. We strike the golf ball with a closed club face. Path does look slightly right, so this ball is going to go left. And it's it starts slightly left of the target, it's moving left. So we can see why there's not a lot of rotation, because he can't really rotate. Because if you rotate, that's also going to move your hands and want to promote more rolling of the hands. So when you have a grip, or excuse me, a club face that's closed already, you're trying to do everything to hold off rotation. So we see right there, holding off the rotation, standing up, and the release doesn't really happen. And we can see that left arm is bracing. It's holding the release, because if he releases, that ball is going this way. It's going to hit that fence. So I'd say the setup, hey, the setup's working for what he's got, for what he naturally wants to do. Now, if he's comfortable with this, that's fine. But let's get him to try either weaken the grip slightly or learn to roll the club a little bit. You can still get your hands to go up because he's still getting his shoulder tilting correct. But maybe just get those hands to roll open slightly to allow the hands to release, to allow some rotation at impact, to free him up a little bit. So this one, based on that club face, is pretty cut and dry. I like this setup for what it is. If you wanted to change the setup, that's on you, but I wouldn't. I'd just get some rotation with the hands. And then from there, now at least we're going to get that rotation of the hands at least, and then we can start to work on rotation of the body. Now, if we need to get him to set up a little bit further back so he's not so toe heavy, so he doesn't lose posture right over here. But I think a lot of this is just by holding that release. He's falling forward and trying, holding on for dear life to not let that ball go left. So pretty quick one here. Hope that helps you. If you have a face on, go ahead, send it to me. If you want me to take a look at the driver, go ahead and send it to me. But other than that, let's see who is next and last. All right. This one, inconsistent contact. Man, that's a story of all of our lives, isn't it? Inconsistent contact. Let's zoom in. All right, let's watch this. Looks pretty good. Okay. All right, so not a lot of rotation going on here on the way through. You do a really good job of getting the rotation on the way back. Ball position does look more forward to allow you to rotate. So we see, from this point of view at least, face on would really help. But from this point of view, assuming that's relative, and then right about here, we kind of stall out and get our hands involved. I mean, overall, I don't know what inconsistencies this would cause. I do see some spine issues in terms of how you take that club back and what happens to your spine. remember, spine issues, it doesn't just because a spine moves up and down in a swing doesn't make it bad or good. It's how you recover in the swing. And some of us recover really well. And if you can recover the same way over and over again, it's no problem. Um, so let's draw that. And this angle's a little bit of not quite down the line. So it's kind of at that 7 o'clock view. So right here, you're doing a good job. You can see your shoulders remaining perpendicular to that spine angle. You haven't lost posture. I'd say your hands might be a little too low. And then we have a slight rerouting to get them slightly higher there as you turn through. But that shoulder tilting is good. Right about here, we start to stand up. But the shoulders still tilt under. So you can see the increase of tilt here. Let's take a measurement real quick and see if it's adequate. Okay, 36. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so you're getting 25 degrees of tilt, which is good. I don't see much in this view. I mean, you can look at the club face. The club face is at least relative to your left forearm, so there's rotation. You're not trying to hold anything. On the way back, you can see that the club face does pull inside slightly and then crosses the line to get to that top position, but you reroute it back down nicely. Your whole body moves together. It could be slightly steep. You can argue that. Maybe not a lot of rotation. So I don't know if this swing itself was a practice swing or if this is how you swing fully. Yeah, you can use more rotation, but this is a tough one just on this one swing. Golfers need to send in both a down the line video and face on video at regular speed. Tripod waist high would be ideal for stable video. You got it, Steve. All right, so I mean, just when I'm having swings like this, and there's not a lot of information with this swing. What the things I look for as an instructor is the compensations that occur. We always look at the setup. Now, setup looks pretty good. I mean, if you take a look at the overall weighting and centeredness of the setup, we can see that it's not too far forward. It's not too far on his heels. There is the spine angle. Center of the heels goes straight up, so it's fairly close. I mean, it's slightly heel-based. Maybe a little bit of spacing would help you, but you do a pretty good job. And it could also be the camera angle, but you do a really good job of getting the hands to go down that lower plane line. And again, this could be a camera angle because I think this is skewed a camera angle. It's not directly down his line, but this might be an issue, is the club going too far inside, which causes some compensations, but you get that lower plane line pretty well with your turn. So you have a really good connection with the center of your chest. From this point, the arms would like to go higher based on your initial setup. So yes, they're slightly flat compared to your setup. Now your turn does look like it exceeds the amount that it's needed. You can see by your shadow. So maybe you're stacking on your left side slightly. We see the buckling of the knees. So the tilting of the knees is really accentuated at this point, which is a sign that you might be overturning. So the turn ratio might not be correct. So as you come on down, you can see you try to turn. So here's that turn. And as you strike the golf ball, the turn stalls out to allow the hands to catch up slightly. So think about your turn ratio. So if your whole total body turn, so let's just talk about shoulders. Let's say you go from your start of your swing to the top of your swing. Let's say you get to 90 degrees. From top of the swing to impact, let's say you get to 45. That means you have a total rotation from the top to impact of 135 degrees. Now, let's say we take that same 135 degree rotation and we start to switch the ratios. So let's say that my backswing now has 135 degrees of rotation. If I take my same 135 degrees of rotation that would have seen me at 35 degrees open, it would see me back to neutral. So there might not be much wrong with your rotation efforts. I think it might just be the ratios might be off just by looking at the shadow work and looking at the way that left knee buckled in. So if this was me and you working, we'd be stopping that swing right about, that's the downswing, right about here with your turn. I mean, that's plenty of turn. Look at that left knee from that point on, it buckles down even more. So maybe even right there. I mean, that's plenty of turn. That's full. You're facing the camera. So at this point, the hand should already be up on that secondary plane line. And now we go down. And now we take that turn that you can see you have at the top of the swing, but it has to work from so much further back behind you. By the time you get to impact, you're neutral. You're there's no rotation to the golf ball. When I say we take that rotation and move that ratio further down to impact, so at least you'll be slightly open with your hips, maybe slightly open with your shoulders, and that'll help you with weight distribution. And that might get the club face to be a little bit more square at impact. Remember, face sends it, path bends it. So I would just need more information. Anybody that wants to submit videos, the more info that you can submit, and some of these are pulled up, and the more information that you can submit, the better it is. So if you can tell me, hey, out of 100 golf balls, I tend to hit this many right, this many left, this many thin, this many short. This is what I face when I'm on the golf course. I don't face it on the driving range, but when I go to the golf course, all of a sudden I chunk everything. And then if you can actually send videos where you do chunk it, we don't necessarily need videos of you striping the ball. That's hard. Like, give me a video where you flub it or where you shank it. Those are great because it's really catches everything in the moment. So I hope that helps you. I hope we answered some questions, gave some path journey for these changes of the students. If this was you and you're watching this later, let's just keep them playing. And you have further questions about the cause and effect of your swing, go ahead and ask them in the comments. I'll answer them when I have time. But I appreciate your support. Send me more videos. The more we can get, the better. Again, I do this free of charge to help you guys out, to stay away from the YouTube rabbit hole. As we all know, we can get caught up into it. And there's so much information out there. And yes, they could be good for the right students, for the right application. But most of the times we don't know if it's right for us. So at least this gives you an idea. Justin Thomas is using a longer driver, 46 inches, and is bombing his drives 373 yards. That's pretty good. I would say, Stephen, the average guys, need to go shorter. I remember I was playing a lot. It's 20 years ago, and I had a 45-degree driver, 45-inch driver, 45-degree. That's probably what I need now. I have a 45-inch driver, and I cut mine down to 42 and a half. Man, I was hitting that thing bullet straight because 2.5 inches, it makes a world of difference. And I suffered maybe 10 to 15 yard loss, but man, I would take that any day. So we need to go the other way, but it's nice to see that he can do that. Eric Bravo, thanks for another gem this week. Hey, you're welcome, Eric. I appreciate your support. Hope all is well with your students. Let me know if you need help or if you have other videos of students. I love doing those too. James, love how you are engaging so much with your community and doing some analysis. It is helping, man. There's a space for this. Appreciate you a lot. Even if info doesn't apply to me, I learned to. But hey, no problem, James. That's why I do it. Even if this isn't your swing, at least you can identify. Maybe you can start to pick up on a couple of things that might resemble your swing, or at least make you aware of cause and effect and why certain things shouldn't be applied to everybody, because we are so unique. No two swings are alike, just like no two snowflakes are alike. And that's just how I go about my instruction. But I hope that helps you guys. Thanks for the support. Let me know if you ever need anything in the comments, but I will see you throughout this week. I got a few more videos coming up. I've got not a recommendation, what do you call it when somebody wants you to do something? Whatever that word is. Request. That's right. I got a request for Aberg, and I did one on his driver, but we're going to do driver and iron just to show Aberg is phenomenal. Hope that helps you. I'll see you guys next week. Fairways and greens.